Hi, it's Jamie from jamieedwards.com again, and in this video, I want to talk about how you can earn respect when you're joining a new software team or maybe starting a new software project. Impressing others was often my primary focus when I joined a new team, and I hope this video helps show you that you can actually build trust with a team in different ways that'll get them to be more open to your ideas without having to feel like the primary concern is just for them to think that you're the best software developer or professional on the software team. So first, let me tell you a few stories. The first story I'll tell you about was really on my very first software project. When I first came out of college and I joined my first team, I was a tester. I was basically brought onto the team to test some user interface components. This was now over 20 years ago, but at that time, the company I joined, they had as one of their products a suite of, when you use like Microsoft software development tools or some of the other software development tools out there that'll give you a toolbox. And in that toolbox, you might have different controls, buttons, and widgets and things like that. This company sold a set of widgets or user interface controls for people to build UIs that people would use on drilling rigs and in submarines even, and on manufacturing floor plants, and basically anywhere where somebody needed a dashboard of some sort, not to make like business decisions, but to actually operate some sort of machinery. And so I was totally new to the team. And when I first joined, being brand new to software development, this was my first real job. I had no idea about how to make a first impression, and I didn't really care because I was so brand new that I think everybody on the team just expected, Jamie's new, he's going to maybe act a little bit strange, or we have no idea how to expect him to behave, and I didn't even really think about it. So making a first impression on a team when you're brand new to your career, I wouldn't worry too much about it. But this video is going to talk a little bit more about once you've had some experience, once you've actually earned trust on a team, once you've actually become more competent and people learn to trust you, when you're given an opportunity to join a new team, how can you change maybe the way you behave a little bit so that people let you in quicker and you're able to actually use your best ideas? So the second story I'll tell you about is once I got into leading teams, and I talked about in some of my other videos how I was given an opportunity very early in my career to lead, like 3 years in, I also didn't care too much about the impression I had on people when they first came onto my team, or how I reacted with everybody else when I was exposed to new people, because I looked at it like I was the lead. I had already earned the right, I thought, to be in this superior position, and people were looking up to me. And so again, I didn't really focus too much on the type of impression I set with people. I really just focused on showing others how smart I was and how much I knew maybe about the code and the technology and the business. But eventually I got into consulting. I've talked about this in many other videos, and this was 10 years into my career. So I'd already been doing software development for product companies for a decade at that point. And once I switched into consulting and I was no longer working for the company that I would do work for, I'd actually be brought into a company that already had existing developers in place. They already had an existing product manager and project managers and people on the team. And now I'm coming into this as the new guy with experience. I immediately felt like what I needed to do was to, again, show everybody how smart I was. And it was sort of a feeling that if they're paying me as a consultant, I'm supposed to be an expert. Well, then the way to get this team to respect me is to show them that, they're getting their money's worth, that I'm an expert, and that they didn't make a bad decision in bringing me in. And while I think that from a purely logical standpoint, this makes a lot of sense, I think it really misses the point of really the way people behave and some of the dynamics between people's, selfishness and also their own concern over, am I going to be respected by this other person? Am I going to have my ideas now challenged when you join a team? And so I hope this video really helps give you some tips that'll make you more successful when you join a team and actually fitting in and getting to that level of status and respect where you can lead people not purely on your technical acumen, but because they really want you to. So what are some ways that we can get respect easier when we're joining a new software development team? And it doesn't matter if you're a DevOps type of person, you're doing that kind of work, or you're in UX, or you're a project manager. Really, any aspect of software development, I think these tips will apply to. But the first one is to get to know the existing work better. So I think there's a temptation, and I fall into this all the time, to get onto a new software project, and the first thing that we want to do is establish with everyone, let's say they have a stack in place and it's maybe a Ruby stack of technologies, or it's a C# stack of technologies, or maybe it's Node.js. We want to show everybody, I already know Ruby really well, and I already know, C# really well, or whatever the stack is. And so when somebody's describing their software architecture or the technologies they pick to us, I used to get into this habit where people would be explaining it to me and I'd be like, oh yeah, I've heard of that. Oh yeah, I know that. Oh, okay, that's cool. And I'd kind of have this vibe, and I think people picked up on it, like there's nothing new under the sun. And that kind of attitude with people, what I've realized is it turns them off, because they look at it like these may be things that are new to that team, or maybe they're excited about it because they came from a legacy code base that was some really old technologies that they hated. And now they've moved to something maybe they're really excited about. And even though in your career, you might be far ahead of them, or maybe this is an old hat technology to you, meaning, it's not really exciting or new, you consider it like, well, big deal you're using, Ruby or technology X. I've been using it for 5 years or something like that. Well, I think if you spend a little bit more time being open to just hearing what is the existing technology stack, what's the business problem, and just letting the team's maybe enthusiasm that they already have about the solution they've put in place be something they can share with you, and not falling into feeling like you need to immediately insert your opinion on it and how you would have done it better. That's going to actually, I think, take down some of the walls that people can put up when they have a new member join a team. Because one of the first things, especially earlier in my career, I would get concerned about when someone would join my team is, how are they going to feel about the technical decisions that I made? Or are they going to poo-poo it? Or are they going to say that they know they have something superior? And so if I knew that, I think it just makes sense. And I've used this a lot in consulting, and it really helps with building relationships. You don't have to be a consultant to do this. It really helps if you could bring that wall down and start to diffuse any concern the other person has that you're going to be elitist or over the top with them. And it will create that comfort that people need so that they can truly have an authentic relationship with you. And you're going to eventually use that authentic relationship to be able to put forth your best ideas. So the second thing I think you can do that'll really help you earn respect on a new software project or with a new team is to really do a little bit of work to get to know the history of the team and the project. Oftentimes when I would do consulting engagements, again, and this is applicable on any software project, I found the better I got at, when I came onto a team, getting to know who the people were, how long they'd been at the company. Were they pissed off about the project? Did they like the project? That really helped me understand the culture and the history and the environment I'm coming into, so that I don't make mistakes like pitch, for example, an approach to do, Scrum or Kanban, or maybe some aspect of the software development process that maybe that team has already tried and failed with before. And I don't know enough about why it failed to actually pitch them why maybe I even would encourage them to try it again, but differently. Sometimes I would come onto a project when I didn't do this really well, and I would probably just kind of come across as an idiot because I'm sitting here telling them to do things that they've already tried that have failed. And I think that's really going to create sort of an attitude with people that they look at you as someone who thinks they have great ideas, but doesn't maybe understand their specific situation. And I think the more clear you can get about the history of that team and of that project, the better situation you're going to put yourself in, so that when it comes time that you want to actually pitch your new idea, or maybe an idea they already had but in a different way, you're going to be able to address all those concerns that they may bring up based on their history that you wouldn't know if you didn't take the time to really understand the history of the project. The third thing I think you can do that'll really help you earn respect on a new software team is to follow existing patterns that are in place at first before you introduce your own. It's very common, for me at least, and I see this with a lot of other software professionals, to come onto a new project and see some architecture in place or set of patterns, and maybe you already used those patterns on a project before earlier in the project, and as the project went on, you came up with some better patterns. And so it's tempting as soon as you see a new software project or a new code base to want to tell the other people, hey, I've got a better way to do this. And while definitely you do want to get the team to use the better way that you're going to suggest to them, I mean, as I've talked about in some of my other videos, having democratic sort of environments for software technology decisions is great and will really let your team build stuff and produce stuff faster and will help everybody feel more comfortable working together. But you need to give people a little bit of time that you show that you appreciate the patterns they already put in place first, and also to not sort of come in and change everything too fast. You know, I got myself into situations a lot on my software projects earlier in my career where I would come onto a project and I'd be suggesting, improvements to how they do source control and improvements to how they do Scrum and how they do error handling and, the MVC framework, how it was put together. And it was like all of a sudden, here's Jamie on the team and he's just thrown everything into chaos. And though over time, I think people would realize some of the things I was suggesting were good improvements, the frustrating thing was that's too much to throw on one person at one time. And it also doesn't really show that you respect the decisions and the work that they have done already to try to improve their products. So if you want to earn respect on a team, I just would really encourage you, be a little more patient. Take a little bit longer, even if you have a ton of ideas for things you want to improve, to really pitch those ideas. Now, one of the things that I sometimes will fall into, and I've gotten much better at this, is oftentimes, you have the hiring manager, or if you're a consultant, your client who's brought you in to do something, and they're kind of looking at it as, I'm paying this person and I'm hoping they're adding value to the team. And so you might think you're under pressure to show that you know things and that you can offer improvements and new things. And I've just found that if you're going to be successful on a software project, it's more important that you earn the respect of your peers early than that manager or client that originally brought you in. And I know this is somewhat counterintuitive. There could be this fear that, why would I invest in building a good relationship with a team? They're not really the ones who are going to ultimately measure or have a say in how well I did on the project. It's more my client or the hiring manager. And while that's true, your overall success in the project is going to depend heavily on the team. So whatever you can do to build a good relationship with them and earn respect early, that's going to really improve the chance that you actually get the things done that are going to show to that hiring manager or that client how competent you are. The fourth thing I would recommend that you consider when you're going to join a new software development team and you really want to earn respect from other people is to not fall into pessimism and just negativity and jaded kind of attitudes that people might have on the project if they're in trouble or they're not happy with their career. In all the different software projects I've been on over the years, it's really common that I'll get onto a project, and if you've spent any time on Reddit or really anywhere where there's a big software development community, this sort of attitude of, I hate my job, or software development sucks, or this is too complex, or this will never get better, is a really common attitude that people love to just sit around and complain about. And it's probably going to be likely that when you join a new software development team, there's going to be a few people with that attitude, and you might be struggling with that some to yourself, and that's partially why I made this video, is to help you with that. But if you fall into that with sort of the thinking that I need to have the same attitude as my coworkers because then they're going to accept me, although you might have a short-term quicker way to kind of feel like you're bonding with that person. You can go out to lunch with them and bitch and complain about the company or the project, and it might feel like you're building camaraderie. You're actually just dragging down the culture and the attitude of the project. You're contributing to how toxic it feels, and you're even making it bad for new members who are going to join because you're really just making that whole situation be something that continues to go on and fester and get worse. So It's hard sometimes to stand up for yourself, to act differently than other people, to be optimistic when other people are really negative. But I find, and I've had a lot of success on projects with this, that if you can have the courage to do that, and you can say, I'm not going to let the attitude of other people around me suck me into being negative like they are, just because it's going to have them accept me quicker, they will actually, what'll happen, and this is pretty cool, is they will actually start to just subconsciously think about, why am I so negative in the face of your positivity? And I've seen the most bitchy, argumentative, negative, jaded people, after they work with me for a couple months, really start to change their behavior. And it's not because I'm forcing them to. I think it's because they just start to question, okay, if Jamie can be in a good mood about this, and he's dealing with the same code that I'm calling crap, and he's dealing with the same management that I hate, what is it about me that's so negative and so jaded about this? And so I just want to strongly encourage you again to earn respect on your new software team or on your new software project. Have the courage to be positive and to not get sucked into the negative attitudes of other people on your team just because you think it might give you a short-term benefit where people bring you into the fold and treat you like them early. And the last tip I'll give you for earning respect on a new software project is really just to involve others heavily in those first few ideas that you do share. So remember, I gave you this tip that if you're going to come onto a new software project and you look at the existing code or the existing architecture, you're going to immediately see things that you want to improve. And I told you, I think it's a good idea that you should maybe consider holding off and being patient before you start to pitch those improvements. Well, inevitably, at some point, you're going to want to pitch those improvements. And I think the way that you handle pitching that first improvement can often make or break how much the team trusts you going forward. So what you don't want to do, and what I've made a mistake with many times in my career is, I maybe do a good job of being patient and holding off and kind of biting my lip a little bit about what I think I want to improve until a later date or a later time. And then by the time that I do pitch that new idea, the emotion sort of me having to hold back everything that I want to change, it kind of explodes. And then the first thing that I suggest to the team, I'm really attached to everybody liking it and accepting it because I've been holding off for so long. I think if you can adopt an attitude that the first thing that you want to pitch to the team to improve, first of all, letting go of whether or not it's accepted, it actually will say more about your professionalism and how much people like working with you and give you a better chance of improving things in the future if people learn that you can suggest something and it can be shot down and you can let it go. I've been on teams sometimes where I've had to be patient like this, and I've had to deal with really jaded people. And as time goes on, I finally come up with something that I think this is a really simple improvement. This is a no-brainer. I'm going to explain it to them. They'd have to kind of be fools to resist this. And I offer this up to the team with a lot of reasons why I think it would help them. I try to understand each of the individuals and explain how it's going to help them each. And they just shoot it down and they don't want to do it. And if I can handle just being okay with, all right, you didn't want to do that, and not let that cause me also to just shut down and go, well, I'm never going to, suggest any improvements to the project in the future. I mean, they shut that down. Like, if this is how it's going to be every time, then screw it. I mean, I think that's an attitude that I've fallen into earlier in my career. And instead, if you can just be humble about it, look at it as it's just a small battle that you lost, and you're actually winning the long-term battle of the relationship with that team because you're showing that your pride is not hung up in having to be right all the time. So what have you had to do on your projects to get respect from your new software project or new software development team? What are some of the challenges that you've maybe run into with this? Leave me your comments below. If you're new to my YouTube channel, please subscribe. You can click the little bell icon and it'll actually notify you when there's updates and I post new videos. I'm also on Stitcher, Google Play, SoundCloud, and iTunes if you'd rather listen to this as a podcast, and you can like me on Facebook. So until next time, thanks.